Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is a walkthrough for Metal Hellsinger, played on the GOAT difficulty. However, this first mission is going to be on Beast difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty. And I'm going to talk about some things in this first stage that elaborates as to why I didn't do it all on Beast. And if you're looking for a guide about that, this is not it, unfortunately. So you will have to look elsewhere. But what I can tell you is this is being played on the PC, and do not judge me by this early gameplay. I had changed my bindings to a new control scheme, and of course that's a great idea for recording a video for YouTube, isn't it? And it was breaking my brain at this point, so it might look like I'm trying my best not to hit the beat here, but I'm actually not. It just wasn't working. And then I swap to the skull, and then my brain remembers. Which is something that I want to say for people who are struggling with this game. You want to get into the habit of trying to match the beat even when you aren't in combat, just so you can kind of get that feeling for it. And if you do this, it's hopefully going to get you a little sharper and a little bit better when it comes to being rhythmic. So, the skull is the easiest weapon to achieve this, and I recommend that you practice with this one the most. This is easily the weakest weapon in the game, but I think it might turn out to be one of the best for scoring, because it builds your multiplayer a lot. And because it's weak, you can hit people a lot, and then you can build the multiplayer even higher. But the game is actually pretty cruel when it comes to your hit streak, because not only do you have to be on the beat, and do you have to be hitting something, but if you get hit, it lowers it as well. And scoring in this game is really hard, unless you are very good at it, and I love that. But at the same time, I do think that it can feel a little bit cruel to people who perhaps aren't fond of rhythm games, or even rhythmically inclined, because let's face it, not everybody has rhythm, and not everybody can develop it. But you don't have to have perfect rhythm to play this game, you just have to kind of do your best, and hopefully that will be enough. And this first song here has Mikkel Stan of Dark Tranquillity, one of my favourite mellow death vocalists, an absolute legend. And I really like this song too. And if you like this song, you're going to be in good company, because later on, when you fight the bosses, Mikkel Stan comes back, and he's on there a ton. So he definitely gets his billing, and I'm glad he does, because he's probably top 3 in the game for me. But this first encounter is just going to be teaching you what you're using. And I tried my best to do a new game on this guy, so I didn't have... You notice how it says I can swap to a shotgun at the bottom and to those double pistols? Well, when you first play, you don't have those, you have to pick them up. And I really wanted to start the game from fresh and just have none of the abilities or anything, but I couldn't do it. And I went on a bit of an adventure trying to do it, and the game just wouldn't let it happen. And I'm bumping into this a lot in modern gaming, and it's really frustrating. So the game doesn't have an option to just start game or delete your save file in the game itself, it seems. So you can't just start a new game and not inherit anything. When you do new game, it takes you in with all your upgrades. And of course the game's a lot more fun then, but this is meant to be a walkthrough to help somebody that doesn't have all the upgrades. And if you're playing it from the start and you're struggling and you're like, how come you can do X or how come you can do Y, Chris? And it's because I'm wearing some bullshit perk. I don't like it as a guide maker, it makes me feel like I'm cheating. So I went into my local files and I deleted everything. I deleted all my save files, I got rid of everything I could find, I deleted everything on the cloud and the connection to the cloud to start the game in offline mode, and every time I booted this bloody game, it kept giving me my file, no matter what I did. And I was googling, I was searching, I was checking forums, so I uninstalled it and completely removed it and did everything I could think of, and then when I reinstalled it, it was still there. So I got really annoyed at that point and I just decided to record anyway, so that's the story of that, if you're wondering. That being said, I do think that it's a good idea to play this game with all the abilities and all the weapons and everything, because then you'll have the most fun and you'll be the best you can be. And I don't have many upgrades because I found the challenges to be fucking tedious and I didn't want to do them. So I did maybe the first 3 levels worth of challenges and then I just skipped them because they were that boring, I couldn't face it. And what it led to is, I don't know if there's a really good ability that makes the game easy, I don't know if there's a setup that makes it ridiculously, destructive. It might exist, and I recommend you Google it and try and find it if you're having a ton of trouble. But for me, I just want to shoot on the beat and jump around and dash. And what you're watching right now is that. And because I have a penchant for sadism, or I suppose I should say a penchant for masochism, because I'm not inflicting pain, I'm inflicting pain on myself, aren't I? I decided not to use the two bonus weapons, so I'm only going to be using the skull and the blade. And you'll notice that these fights last quite a long time when you're not using all the tools in your repertoire. And it leads to these moments where you're not quite certain whether or not the game is working correctly or you're doing something wrong. And the general consensus that I've found in many moments is, if it feels like the game is continuing and there's tons of those gargoyle jobber zombie men, it means there's somebody big somewhere you haven't killed or who might be stuck. Because the game works somewhat similarly to Doom Eternal, where you go into an environment and there is focused demons attacking you. And then there are fodder running around to enable you to keep the beat and get your life back on a nice slaughter animation. So if you're killing tons of the slaughter and all the chaff is mobbing you and you can't see anybody bigger, it means that somebody more important is lurking in the midst. And when you find them and you kill them, the level usually stops populating enemies then and you can get on with your life. But on Beast difficulty, you do not get any checkpoints. And this game already has shitty checkpoints, which I find to be even more insulting. And I don't understand why it doesn't just do permadeath as a toggle. If you want to do permadeath, if you want to prove your dick is hard and big and wide, you can do that by toggling that on and having a great time, you know? For everybody else, I'd like a designed game. Also, this right here, this moment where you get to fire in much faster sequence, on the traditional control scheme, hitting that beat there is really easy. On the control scheme I've moved to for the purposes of testing for this guide, it's actually quite tricky to do, and I don't end up doing it a lot. And you might watch these videos and think, Chris, how come you're not using the ability of the blade, the special? It's really strong, it's really fun. And it's not because I don't like it, it's because I can't do it. So, if you want to see my blind playthrough of this game where I'd never done any of the levels, all my first responses, my first reactions, it is over on Twitch in a VOD. And you can see me play the game, just completely kind of smitten by what it does. You can see my sentiments sour on the bosses because they're terrible. And you can see my semi-consistency of keeping beat and kicking ass as I go through the game, and then I hit the final level and I can't even keep the beat. So you can see all of that for yourself. And you can see me use this ability and actually do it and get on that tempo, and it looks cool. And then when we come to the walkthrough, you can see me fuck it up repeatedly. And there's no excuse, it's just harder to do on the control scheme I picked. But my theory is this, guys, and I'm going to tell you this early so you can do it early. If you're playing this on mouse and keyboard, which I hope you are, I recommend taking shoot off the mouse. And I might have popped your anus out there, so we'll just tuck it back in. The problem with mice is no matter how good they are, no matter how good the switches on your mouse are, no matter how good the polling rate, no matter how good your mouse is, there will always be delay from your posture of holding a mouse to you depressing the mouse to the game receiving the mouse. This is just science, this is technology. So my theory was, why is it that I can always hit the dashes on beat, but every so often I miss the shots? And the only thing I can think of is the MX Cherry switches in my keyboard that have the massively rapid response time for the time when it was out. It's not as good as some of the keyboards now, there's some better ones on the market, but fundamentally, I have some of the fastest keyboard switches that you can get. And that was in that moment of clarity that I realised, of course, pressing a button on a keyboard is faster than pressing a button on your mouse, because the resistance there is different, the way you hold it is different. Everything that you're doing there is a little bit easier on the key. So I swapped those buttons, and that's what you're watching here, guys. So instead of my left mouse being shoot, it's dodge. And instead of my left control being dodge, or left shift I think it is, it's shoot. And this idea, if you play a lot of shooters and you've got thousands of hours of muscle memory, it breaks your brain. And there's moments where it breaks my brain. You know, when I want to jump and dodge, I'll jump and shoot, and my brain gets confused, and you'll notice every so often, my mobility gets really trashy. Happens during a boss fight when I panic, and my brain defaults to my original control scheme, and I don't know what to do, and I can't recover because it's confusing me. But that being said, even though I only have 2 hours on this control scheme, I can already tell it's better for me. And what I would do, guys, if you can, do this early before you build up bad habits. If you can, swap your shoot button to something like E. Whichever one you're more comfortable with, Q or E, right? Or F if you like that one. Whatever you can do, put it on a button near that hand. Because pressing that button is very easy, it's very comfortable, And if you can start doing that from the beginning, your tempo is going to be unmatched, and you're going to be really accurate and really dangerous, and it's going to help a ton. And that's my piece of advice, guys. My 3 pieces of advice for playing Metal Hellsinger. The first one, put your shot on a key if you can. It's just smarter. It's the same with controller as well. You might not realise this. I don't mean to sound patronising if I am. I don't mean to. I'm just trying to give information and not everybody knows the same things. But pressing a trigger on a controller is always slower than pressing a button, because the button is just membrane on top of a circuit board, whereas a trigger goes through springs, it goes through actuation, it has resistance. And that resistance then goes through the other formats, and then you get the response. So if you want the best connection to something, never bind it to a trigger. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people will prefer face buttons and older controllers that don't have triggers. So again, if you want the best connection and you want to get really down and have it be that it's your timing missing and not the delay on the technology, even though the delay is very small, and you can get used to it, I would recommend the button. The second thing, I would recommend, if you can, to dodge every time you fire. In this game, you will notice that it says like dash or perfect dash or something like that, and if you do it 3 times in a row, it gives you a double dash and a triple dash, and it rewards you for doing dashes on the beat. So perfect triple dash combo, see that? Perfect triple dash combo. So when this is happening, you are not only are you keeping the rhythm with your body because you're hitting those dashes too, but you can shoot if you have bullets on each of those notes. And you want to do that as much as you can. Because the concept in Metal Hellsinger is quite simple. You know, the beat lines are going to go towards your reticle, you press the button on those beat lines when they hit that reticle, and you get the result. But it never really changes. This weapon will always be like this, the sword will always be like the sword, the shotgun will always be like the shotgun, the crossbow will always be the crossbow, and so on and so forth. And the rhythms on those, even when you activate the supers and they get a bit faster, it's still the same, regardless of song. You could put Agadoo right now, and it would still be the same beat, because the whole game's built on this beat. They just put metal music behind it to make it more interesting. And you're not going to face any, you're not going to face any crazy triplets, you know, like 8th notes, 16th notes, repeated patterns. You're not going to get anything that's like syncopated or any kind of polyrhythm. It's just, it's a very simple, repetitive, consistent beat. And it's probably for the best, because I checked the Steam forums and there's a lot of people that think the game doesn't work. And I don't really get that. Like, have you got a terrible monitor with really bad response time? Have you got like bad peripherals? Because I'll tell you one thing, guys, every time it says good, it's because I fucked up. It's not the game. Except for that one level. That one level's a bit weird. There's a couple of parts where I think the game might desync a little bit, but other than those moments, it's you. It's always you. And if you blame everybody else but yourself, you'll never get better. And even if it is off, even if it is a little desynced, you can learn to adjust. It's not natural, it's not what you want. It'll piss off the musicians, and the timekeepers, and the atomic clocks, and the drummers that we know. But fundamentally, the game works, and it's rhythmic, and if you can match a simple beat, you'll do okay. And I can't remember what the third thing is I recommend that you do. What did I say? Put the gun on a button, dash every time you shoot, and I suppose the last final thing will just be, you know, have a good time, and don't fight the bosses. Don't fight the bosses. And I fell off, which is always great. I'm nearly dead here. But the cool thing about when you're nearly dead is if you run away, there are these green crystals on the wall which will get you your life back. Life is interesting in Hellsinger. Because when you slaughter people, you get life back. And when you break the crystals, you get life back. And there might even be a perk that helps you there too. But fundamentally, try your best not to get hit if you can. It's just better that way. And then when you do, if it gets dangerous, try and find one of those health caches and you'll be fine. But beast difficulty, we're coming up on the boss here, and the first boss is my favourite boss in the game because it's the only boss that dies in a reasonable amount of time. And I'm going to show you how strong the shotgun is here too. But beast difficulty is, I think the enemies are more aggressive or do more damage, something along those lines. The encounters might be a little bit longer because they definitely felt it when I was recording, but that might be because I was gimping my setup. But the thing you will notice is they say that the beat is harder to keep. So I think you might have to be perfectly on the beat to get the reward. And that's not the worst thing in the world, you'll get there. It does feel a little bit tighter, but I don't think it's too tight to be unfun. But it's the checkpoint that kills it for me. Because in this game, it's really easy to get instantly jibbed by the bosses. The bosses can melt you really quickly if you overextend on one of their weird transitions. And then you have to do the whole level again. And I don't really like this game when it comes to repeating the levels. It's just not fun for me. I don't like having to do all this again when I die to a boss that wasn't good the first time. So I would have preferred the game personally if every fight was checkpointed and I could have just repeated the checkpoints and got a really good score and segmented the level. But when you do that in this game, it kills your score and you only get a certain amount depending on the difficulty. So on this difficulty you get no retries. On the next difficulty that we'll be playing the rest of the game on, I think you get 3 or 4, and then maybe on the easiest difficulty you can do what you want. But I don't know why there isn't a normal mode with checkpoints on every fight, like a campaign, and then a score mode where you have to do the whole thing like single segment and no checkpoints and no cheesing, you know? Like, I don't get why they didn't do something for both play styles. But they didn't, so what can you do? And it really sours me on the difficulty, because not only do I not want to die and then repeat a ton of the game, even though it's only like 10 to 15 minutes, but I don't want to be beaten by a boss that I shoot 50 times, do no damage to, and he kills me in 2 like overlapping hits. And it's not a good example here, because this boss goes down really quickly because he's well designed. But if you did not enjoy that aspect fight, you're not going to enjoy this game, because every boss is that monster with a different moveset, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, culminating into a final boss that is, for lack of a better word, fucking terrible. But here is the demo stage. It's called Stygia, and it has the vocals from I think it's the arch enemy singer, isn't it? This is a really popular song, this one, and it's really fun. And I need to start talking out about some of the disappointments, because I think this game is a great concept, and I cannot wait for the mod support when you can put your own music in. I'm going to do this whole game to Pig Destroyer, dude, and I'm going to skip the fights. I'm going to skip the bosses and just do the levels. But this game has got some problems, and it's not the ones that the Steam forums are all talking about. There's some issues in sync. There's some issues in that final level. The bosses, dude. The bosses are so bad. Like, I have killed more bosses than most people have played video games. I have been spending and wasting my life killing digital enemies since I was a little boy. And I'm now an old man. I'm losing my memory, I'm losing my hair, I'm grey, I'm fading. I'm like Dorian Gray's portrait. My voice just cracked, which lies about my age. But I've killed some good bosses in my day. And I'm killing good bosses in new games too. I recently played a game called Fashion Police Squad that had some really interesting bosses. They weren't the best balanced, but they were fun and they were different, you know? And then I came to this game hoping for something really fine-tuned and really cool, and instead, it's just copy-paste garbage with bullet hell influences that doesn't really demand much of the player. With a song playing, and I think it plays the same song almost every time. And then the first boss you fight has a really reasonable life bar and feels like it's a good fight between him being good and you being good. And then the next one is twice as tanky, and then the next one is thrice as tanky, and then by the end of the game, you feel like you're fighting a fucking God Hand boss on a kick me sign hard run. Like, it's just unbearable, dude. It's fucking unbearable. And I don't understand how anybody can enjoy the boss fights unless you are super rhythm game and you just want to chase those high scores by milking him by using the weakest weapon or something. Like, to me, I think these levels should have been anywhere between 5 and 8 minutes long, and it wouldn't have bothered me if there was 8, because I'll replay them. But what they've done with these bosses is they've made bosses that are uninteresting, they've made punishing checkpoints that completely destroy motivation should you fail on something that you perceive to be badly designed, and then to add insult to injury, they copy-pasted the motherfucker throughout the whole game. Like, imagine God of War if every boss was a troll. And I know what you're thinking, every boss was a troll. And it was, but imagine if there were even more of them, you know? Imagine if every boss in Bloodborne was Father Gascoigne. It would have still been excellent, because I love that guy. But you would have got bored. And then the sad part is, the concept of the bosses change, but the style doesn't. And what I don't really understand is if they have money to pay band members from prolific metal bands to sing the songs in their game and do live performances at Gamescom, do they not have the money to model a fucking boss character that doesn't look like a Christmas decoration from hell? Like, this thing looks like a fucking satellite dish in a common room in the Seven Circles. Like, I don't understand it. It is a skull with wings, and it is shit Every time. It is aesthetically shit, it is mechanically shit, it is uninteresting, and it ruins the game. And you might be thinking, wow, this English guy's really mad, why is he shouting at me? Well, I do apologise if you're new here, but I love this game, and I hate the bosses, and the bosses make me want to turn the game off. Like, I was recording this, guys, this is my second playthrough, you're watching my second playthrough. I've not put hundreds of hours in the game, I'm still fresh, it's not like I'm burned out. I get to the bosses on my second playthrough, and I kind of want to just skip the level, you know? I want to get to the next level because it's not fun. And of course, I'm projecting, of course it's subjective, you might like them, that's awesome, you've got a great game, they're all the fucking same copy-paste bullshit. But to me, it seems like such a falter in a game that is in every other way rather entertaining, if not a little bit simple and a little bit feature lacking. And let's talk about mechanics, because I haven't mentioned it and I will forget. So, the simplest way to play this game is to follow the beat. And of course, if you follow the beat, you get a nice perfect for doing so, and your attack receives extra damage. If you fall off the beat, you will still do damage, but you will do reduced damage. And the reduction is quite a penalty too. One area that I wish was different, but I don't think is it doesn't seem like accuracy rewards you. It seems like rhythm is the only real multiplier on your damage, and not headshots or any kind of natural weakness. And to me, if I shoot you in the face with perfect rhythm, I should be doing even more damage, because this is a first-person shooter. First. Get it? First person? It is a shooter first and a rhythm game second. And if you do not have first-person shooter mechanics, it makes it seem pointless. It makes it seem like, what the fuck are we doing here, right? It's just a rhythm game then. And the rhythm aspect of it is simple, but it's satisfying. And because I personally like this music, it's not my favourite music, this style, shall we say, but I enjoy it, and I get pumped. So when I'm playing this, I'm tapping my foot, I'm fucking getting into it, I'm having a good time, you know? And that's what it's all about, and to me, the feeling of getting into the beat and like losing yourself, like when you play Tetris and you just get in the zone, that's the appeal of this. It's just react, hit that rhythm, kill the enemies and have fun. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just in it, I'm having a good time. But I can understand people that were maybe looking for something more, because a lot of rhythm games are very complicated and they're simple on the surface, but they've got more and more going for them. And in this game, there are interesting things you can do. So for instance, you can kill people in creative ways and you will get a different bonus. And you can even use environmental hazards to kill people and they'll give you a bonus. And then you can do things like killing people in the air to get a bonus, kill people, I imagine, while, you know, doing a dash and stuff. And there are these little combos that you can do and you can unlock, and the game will tell you about them, and if you do them you'll be rewarded. And then on top of that, you have the very most basic impulse in any kind of competitive scoring game, which is in itself the score. The leaderboard aspect, the ability to run the level again and do better. And if you can keep a hit streak going, if you can get perfect rhythms, if you can do all the different combos, if you can not get hit, you could get ridiculous scores. Like, imagine trying to chain the whole level without dropping your combo. Can you imagine how challenging that will be, but how rewarding it will be? That sounds like something that could be really fun. However, for a player like me, because of what I said about the bosses, I don't want to do that, you know? Like, the levels, absolutely, I'd chain the levels, but if we can mod this game, I will be modding the bosses out. I will. And here we have the green guy. So, I don't know the names of the monsters, guys. I do apologise. I don't know the name of the guns. I know the shotgun's called Persephone because it's the best weapon in the game, and if you can stay on beat with it, it will kill everything. But the general rhythm of how I play, as you've noticed by watching it, is I like to put every weapon on, and I like to get the special for it. I like to build that bar. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, life bar's on the left, special bar's on the right, and what's going to happen is every time you deal damage and every time you do a slaughter like that, you get a nice chunk of the energy bar back. You build your meter. And I like to have every special in stock on my body, and then when I get into a situation where I can use it or where I need it, I'll bring it out and do it. And a lot of the times, I don't use them as much as I should, because the skull's fantastic. If you get a bunch of jobbers and you stun them all, and then you execute one and they all blow up, you get a nice massive combo. And then things like the shotgun fires an incredibly damaging pellet. These pistols summon a mimic, a doppelganger of your body who shoots for you and pulls aggro, and you can shoot with him. He's really good. And then of course the bladed one you saw me do earlier, where you do tons of slashes with that nice chuggy riff. But this is the demo boss, this is another aspect, and I don't think that this boss is too bad. I quite like this one because he takes good damage and he moves around and his patterns are interesting enough. But one of the things that kind of stings me is that when I played the demo about 20 times. I did like it. I thought the boss was bad. I thought the boss was kind of lame and slow, and there's all these moments where you can't shoot him where nothing's happening and he just kind of floats around as a bunch of particles. And I didn't think it fit the game. It was badly paced. And then all of a sudden he can instantly kill you or put you down to 1 HP and then you can barely recover because you just get like tagged by some point blank bullshit. So I thought coming from the demo that this boss was dog shit, but don't worry, the other bosses might be better and they might be really good. Because I was thinking of, you know, proper first person shooter bosses. I wasn't thinking of this thing. Because I mean, I just don't understand it. It's weird. And it's chunky too. Like, I'm hitting it with a shotgun on beat and I'm doing no damage. I might be doing something wrong. Maybe I've got to use a different weapon. Maybe the pistols were better, but suffice to say, I'm not a fan. And all the bosses were like him, so you can imagine my disappointment when I realised that. But the demo did a few things like that. The demo showed me that not only were the bosses going to be something suspect and probably quite shit, but also the demo made the greatest mistake I think a demo can make, and is it gave me the hope of a better game. And I know that sounds really harsh because I think that this is a great game and I do recommend it. I think if you like rhythm games and you like shooters, play this game. It's great. The bosses are weak. You know, you might not like the music, which would suck, but if you like metal, if you're a fan of, you know, kind of metalcore-y stuff, you're going to have a great time. However, in the demo, you could use every weapon. So, every weapon in the demo is represented except for the blades. Well, technically the blades and the crossbow, wasn't it? Whereas in the full game, because we didn't realise there was more weapons, I had the impression from the demo, this might be my fault more so than anything, but because we could use everything in the demo and it didn't make us choose, it gave me the impression that we were going to have the full suite of weapons. And then when you play the full game, you are limited to having 2 on top of the base 2. And I don't really like that because I wanted to be swapping between everything. And I don't know if they'll add something, and I don't know if it's for the balance, but fundamentally, the demo made me think you were going to have access to every weapon, and the game says no. But here is the next level. I think it's called Yhelm. And we've got the vocalist from Ginger, which is a band I hear a lot about, but I don't listen to. And I like this level. This reminds me of the Blood Marshes or the Blood Swamp from Doom Eternal's DLC. And I'm now going to be using the crossbow, which is probably my favourite weapon in the game. And I also have one of the pieces of equipment on that means that when I swap weapons I get a couple of ghost bullets. And it's probably my favourite ability in the game that I have access to, because when you put the crossbow on, instead of firing 2 rounds, you get to shoot like 6 times, and it's really stupid. And this weapon is so fun because if you hit things on the beat, if you get a perfect hit with this weapon, it gives you a rocket jump. And you can use this to move really fast with your dodges and your jumps, and there's almost no reason to get hit by anything. And because it's a massive AoE, you can treat this as if you have cheat codes on and you're just blowing everything up with like a grenade launcher. And that's exactly what I do. And I find this to be so fun, dude. This is the most fun you can have on this game, just using this silly gun and just flying everywhere. But what I did do is, because I'm playing, it's easy for me to keep up with this, but when you're watching, this might be a bit disorientating, and some people don't like that. So I didn't pick this weapon every time, just for those people who might be a bit annoyed by me flying around like this. And hopefully it doesn't annoy too many people. But a long time ago, I realised something that I never anticipated, which was the way I play could piss people off. And it's strange, isn't it? You know, when you play a game quickly or you play a game fast and a person plays the game slow and they watch you and they say things like, oh, you're on ADHD or cocaine or like fucking speed or something. You've been snorting Adderall and whatnot, and it's like, I'm kind of sitting there with a water and a nice cappuccino. And I'm sipping my cappuccino. It's not like I'm injecting it into my eye. But it's different strokes for different folks, isn't it? I must admit though, when I use this, I get so into bouncing around like an idiot that I always drop my hit streak and I get hit a lot. But this is a cool level, this one. And the boss in it is, I suppose you could say it's a little bit more creative, but I don't really like it still. And it's starting to get a lot tankier too. And who knows, maybe in the future they'll come in and they'll address the boss's weaknesses and maybe spice them up a bit, because I don't think there's anything wrong with having a boss that's a simple shape. Some of my favourite bosses in gaming are true last boss, TLBs in shmups. Think of Aki, you know? He's a beetle. He's like a tiny beetle, he's just a beetle. Think of Doom. Doom is a circle with wings. Think of Hibachi. It's an angry bee. But they look awesome, and they fire a million bullets, and that's what they could have done here. They could have made the bullet hell patterns really interesting and fun to navigate, but instead, they just feel like a big line of bullshit. It feels like Nier, where it's just, here's a bunch of fucking orbs, and we didn't really think about it, and we're too busy, like, jacking off to the porn that's generated from our beautiful protagonist. Like, to me, I don't understand making patterns in first person to dodge if the pattern is just a bunch of bullshit to jump over. Like, I would prefer them to be slow-moving orbs and then weaving in between them. But this is a green guy. He is a teleporty around dude, and he does a lot of damage. The hierarchy of the enemies is quite simple in the game. You have the standard fodder, you have those flies, which I hate the flies, man. This enemy sucks because he slows you down with his little fart cloud. Then you have the larger enemy that fires at you, and then the larger enemy with the shield. The large enemy with the shield can summon AoEs on the ground that ripple out in a concentric circle, and he's quite dangerous. And he's also a pain in the ass to hit. So, for the shield guy, I like to put on the sword and then just hit him and circle him as best as I can. And then for everything else, I generally save the shotgun for anything big, and I point blank as much as I can. And it deals with most things. And then you can just kind of swap the weapons depending on how you feel and how much fun you're having. One of the things I always try to do in a game like this is if I feel like I'm using a weapon too much, I'll swap to something else to make it a bit more interesting for you folks to watch. And I decided to put the videos up for this one without commentary so you could hear the songs, because I thought that people might have liked that. And hopefully people appreciate that, but the views on YouTube were not the great, so maybe people are just wanting commentary, so they want me to ruin the songs with my voice. But at least if you're watching this, you're like, yeah, I'd like to watch this gameplay without the guy talking, that'd be cool. Then there's something for you. And I try to do that on all my projects, guys, if I can. Sometimes it's not possible because shit happens. Files get deleted. But I try to do that, and I put them in the playlist unlisted. And you might have noticed, like, why is there a bunch of videos in Chris's playlists that aren't, you know, public? And it's just because I'm not really known for no commentary. And I've tried to implement it for the people that asked for it, and it never did very well. And it taught me another important lesson on YouTube, which you learn in life, don't you? The notion of you can't please everybody, and someone will always complain about something. And if you want to create anything that you believe in, do it because you want to do it, and do what you like, because you can't make everybody like what you like, and nor should you. You know, the whole point this game exists is because somebody wants to play an awesome first-person shooter while listening to awesome metal music. And I know people that think metal music is noise. You know, they've never even heard of brutal slamming death metal. They've never gone down the wonderful road of grindcore or gore grind or cyber grind or anything like that. You know, the concept of pure noise is beyond them. Like, I heaven forbid what they would think if I put a Sun album on and they heard that bass rumbling. And they were like, does the song ever start? And then you have to tell them, you're actually on song number 3. But look how fun this is. Is this not fun, guys? Answers in the comments right now if you made it this far. Does this look fun? Bouncing around this crypt, just blowing the shit out of everybody like I've got infinite rockets? This is bloody fun. And it's such a dichotomy too, because I hate the bosses and I hate the checkpoints, but I love the game. And it's funny because I won't play this until it gets mod support after this. I've done 2 playthroughs and I'm done. You know, I even got a key from the devs, and I'm so happy that they hooked me up. Big thank you to the developers. I love you. I love your game. I will sing the praise of your game. I will try to get people to buy it. And at the same time, fellas, I fucking hate your bosses, and I hate your checkpoints, and I wish things were different. If you want to DM me, I'm available. I will fix this. I will fix it all. I will also remove that refuse song on the final level because it's fucking garbage. But jokes aside, I think the developers have done a great job, and I can't wait to see how they support this game, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And I get keys for lots of games, guys. I'm that popular. My dick is that big. I just wave it around me and use it as a life raft in water. But a lot of the times the games are garbage. Like I got a key for Saints Row, the new one. It's fucking terrible. It's got mouse decel. Mouse decel in 2022. Like, and I hate to sound ungrateful, but like, you know when you don't even want the key you got for free? And I would give it to somebody else, but you're not allowed to do that. There's strict instructions not to do it. But like, it's weird to me. It's weird to me that games can have so much going for them 20 years ago, and then 20 years later they can be so lacking in the ways they used to be strong. Does anybody else find that really strange? Like this game here, as a straight first-person shooter, it's not breaking new grounds. It's not really going to do anything you haven't seen before. People are going to compare it to Doom. Those people are silly. You know, people might compare it to something like Guitar Hero, and I suppose they're a bit more spot on, but it's really not the same. Like, the biggest thing you can compare this to is BPM. And I've seen a lot of forum posts mentioning that BPM is way better than this, and this game is terrible. And I'd just like to be the contrarian in this conversation, because I was really excited for BPM and I hated it. I thought it was terrible. Doesn't mean it is terrible, just means I don't like it, right? And I think that this is a much better system. I prefer this way of doing rhythm shooting. I found BPM to be tedious, and I hated the music, I didn't like the design, I didn't like any of it, and I didn't cover it because of that. It wasn't for me, it wasn't what I wanted, whereas this is exactly what I want, and it still has things in it I don't like. And you might be that one guy that turns up every so often and be like, oh, you're impossible to please, you. Oh, you're just grimy, you're just critiquing tiny things, you're nitpicking. Nitpicking! I love that one. Because I get visions of monkeys when they groom each other to try and find lice. I am a monkey hovelled over your game, picking lice out of its scalp. Like, that's an interesting concept, that, isn't it? The idea of nitpicking. Why wouldn't you want something to be excellent and consistently excellent, you know? People nitpick my videos, people nitpick everything I've ever fucking done. I nitpick everything I do, you know? I nitpick everything I see. The whole idea of nitpicking is not to be some pretentious asshole that just complains and makes everyone miserable. It's so that people go, oh yeah, that could be better. Oh yeah, maybe if I tweak that, that might be better next time. Oh yeah, maybe we could improve, maybe we could evolve. Like, if you say everything's good, nothing changes. And you end up chained to a radiator sucking 50 dicks for meth that you can't even smoke. You have to sell it, and then give it all to your pimp, who then makes you suck 50 more dicks, and at that point you're using dicks as toothpaste, and you might as well be brushing your teeth with a dick. But look at that fly. The fly is such a bitch, dude. Sometimes he goes down in a second, and other times it takes him 200 years. I don't like that guy. And my streak is getting assassinated. But I would be very interested to watch people's leaderboard runs of this, because I'm curious as to what the best scorers are doing and what they've found out. Because people are getting 50 million points on these levels, I don't know how they're doing it. Like, they must be really fucking good or something. They're either chaining the whole level or they've found something sneaky. Because I found something sneaky on one of the levels, but it involves milking, and I don't like milking when you're scoring. It reminds me of Devil May Cry 4 leaderboards, when people would just whore the living shit out of an enemy respawn. And do you really want to be the guy that spends 200 years with the game paused, whoring a respawn on one level? It just makes me think of Aegis Wing, where there was that boss that fired meteorites at you that gave you 50 points when you shot him. And you could literally fight that boss for months, just shooting his meteorites and dodging his attacks and then milk him that way. And the guy that was number 1 on the leaderboards did that. I remember a friend of mine messaged him to ask how he got his score, and he said he kept the game paused for like 8 days and kept doing that for hours. What a hero, dude. I'm glad those people exist, but I'm scared of them, and I hope they don't have access to loaded weapons. And he's a shield guy. This guy's a bitch. Again though, another thing I'm curious about when it comes to this game, I'm curious to see what strategies emerge. Like, what is the best way to play this game? You know, what's the best weapon for each enemy and the best way to kill them for either maximised score or maximised efficiency? Because something I'd like to do with this game is see if I can get the lowest possible score while still being on the beat. Because anybody can get a high score by, you know, doing everything right, but how do you get rid of everything while not doing everything right, other than the fundamental basis of the game? That excites me, that. Like some kind of low percentage run. But here we go, we have another boss. This one is this is like a doorstop in Tim Burton's house. And it's kind of odd because he shields himself with these bricks and then you kind of come close to him and shoot him and he summons a bunch of enemies and he's still not too tanky, but he's tankier than I'd like when you stick a shotgun up his cunt and he just says what? Like, I don't want you playing karaoke with the barrel of my gun. I want my gun to silence you and kill you real quick. Like, I stick a shotgun in you, I want to see at least a fifth. If it were up to me, I'd see a third, dude. I'd kill this dude in 3 hits and I'd just make him mobile. And again, something that really irritates me. And I do apologise if this one's a bit ramblier than my usual commentaries, guys. I've streamed today for 4 hours of talking bollocks, and when I do that, my brain is like on 100 miles per hour. But what is it with shooters not aim testing you? Where's the skill check in a shooter if you never get your aim tested? And what it leads to... Well, this is really dangerous as well. Look at all that damage. It leads to a situation when games don't test your aim, you never are demanded of to have good aim unless you play multiplayer. And if you do play multiplayer, other people will test your aim and make you have to be better, but if you don't, you can be shit and not know it. And you know the worst thing about humans, don't you? Is nobody thinks they're shit. Nobody thinks they're bad, nobody thinks they're mean, nobody thinks that they're not funny, nobody thinks that their opinion's not valid. Everybody's deluded, especially more so now by social media, deluded into thinking that what they do is important. And I am the king of that because I'm talking on a video on the internet that no one watches. Hypocrisy, thy name is I. But I don't understand no skill checks in shooters. I want to have my tracking checked. I want to have my flicks checked. I want to have my capacity to aim vertically and to move while I aim. I want to be able to turn quickly and get on target quickly, and I want the game to punish me if I can't, you know? I want a shooter to say, you need to be better and here's why. I don't want to just have everybody stand behind a chest-high wall and not move. Like, we've been doing that since fucking GoldenEye, dude. Hell, you could even say Doom, but there wasn't really chest-high walls, there were just kind of barrels, wasn't there? Barrels and corridors. Like, it's sad to me. It's sad that I've been playing video games for most of my life, and I'm still doing the same things to beat them. And it's not that they're not enjoyable, because there's still enjoyment to be had, but don't you want to be challenged in a way you've not been challenged in? Don't you want to improve? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, dude, I've kissed a girl, I've gone outside. You know how much grass I've touched? At least 3 blades. But here's the next level. This is this devastation. I think this level is called Incaustis or something like that. I don't know the exact names, guys. I've made individual videos and it will be in the chapters if you check them. Funny story here as well. When I was recording Dark Souls level 1, New Game Plus 7, no roll, no damage, I changed the bindings on my keyboard so that I didn't have to keep alt-tabbing to start recording and stop recording on OBS because I was getting really salty after I fought Manus for about 8 hours. Turns out that keybind that I put in my keyboard for that particular recording session ended up jeopardizing the recording of this video. So the next 2 levels I recorded all start to finish, and they were pretty good, and I wasn't recording because I'd stopped the recording on a binding I didn't realise was active. And it turned out I had enter as stop recording. So at the start of every level when the game says press enter, when I was clicking that, the game thought I was pressing it, and it was stopping OBS. So I had to record these levels twice. And hopefully that's better for you guys. You'll see a little bit more sharper footage or more aggressive or something, but truth be told, I have this weird like neuroticism when it comes to rhythm games and when it comes to music. I'm not a big fan of listening to the same song a lot unless I really, really like it, or unless it's like casual. And I should elaborate on what I mean there because it doesn't make sense. So when I say listening to the same song a lot, I mean when it comes to playing a game. So, for instance, if I played this level 5 times in a row, I would probably never want to play the game again. And it's not because it's not fun, and it's not because it's not a good song, and it's not any of the factors of the game, it's because I have an incredibly low tolerance for repeating stuff when it comes to musical rhythm games, and I don't know why. And here's what happens. I can play, for instance, this level, play the next level, then come back to this level, and I'll be okay. I can play a song on Guitar Hero, play a different song on Guitar Hero, and then go back and play the other song, and it's okay. But I cannot do the same song twice. Because my brain just kind of goes, nope, moving on, nope, gone, see you later, bye. And I don't know if it's like a form of attention deficit disorder or some kind of like autism thing, but I feel a profound compulsion that is almost impossible to suppress, to keep moving forward. It's weird. I feel like a shark, you know? And I don't like it either. It's not something I want, it's not something I choose, but it's something that I feel. And I know that I'm not the only one. And it's the same with a lot of things, you know? And I do think if you have something that you wish you could do but you can't do it, and it's like super neurological and you don't really know why and you can't explain it, I think you have the same thing. And I think it's just brain stuff. Because I think about this all the time, you know, when it comes to something like a boss in a game. For instance, a boss in Ninja Gaiden or in Devil May Cry or Dark Souls. I can fight a boss in an action game for hours. Hours, guys! I'm talking 20, 30 hours in a row, essentially. In like 8-hour segments or something. I can do that forever. The times I've started fighting a boss and I've stayed up 5 hours later than I wanted to because I was so stubborn I needed to beat it, I can do that infinitely. I could fight the same boss for an entire week. And I could just do it because I have this capacity to turn off that thing I'm talking about and just do it. It's the same thing when it comes to working. You know, when it comes to editing something boring, or when it came to going and working in a supermarket, or working in a call centre. I can just do it. Just turn off the part, you don't want to be there, do it, right? It's that weird professionalism that you learn as you grow up. That's easy to me, you know? Listening to an uninteresting conversation and pretending to be interested and saying the right platitudes, easy. Can do that all fucking day. Internally, I'm like, oh my god, I hope the meteorite strikes this man. But, you know, vocally, I'm just like, yeah, okay, that's cool, nice. And what happened then? You know, you can do that, it's easy shit. But certain things, permadeath, rhythm games, and like any combination of that mechanic, I cannot do it. My brain just nopes out. And it's weird as well, it's so weird. To give you an idea of my capability for tedium, I ended up finding out on YouTube that there was a limit to how many thumbnails you could upload in a single 24-hour period. And if you don't know how to put a thumbnail on a video, guys, you go into your video manager and you click like 5 tedious things, and you can't do it in bulk. You can't do like 50 thumbnails at the same time. You have to do them individually. I did 100 thumbnails individually in a row. And then I realised that YouTube had a limit and it told me off. And doing that was easy, because I turned my fucking brain off and I did it because it's my job. But the idea of playing this level twice nearly killed me. And it's so fascinating, isn't it? How we work like that. Like, think about something you're really good at. You know, something I'm really good at, being annoying. Talking out my ass for hours. I'm exceptional at that. It's like I was born to just bitch. And then think about people who don't like to talk and feel uncomfortable or feel shy or feel anxious. The idea of speaking or holding a conversation or any of that, it's just not in their body. They can't do it. Isn't it insane to think of the spectrum and the sheer diversity of what we're good at and what we can't really do, and our capacity to change that too. You know, you can change so many things, you can learn so many things, you can improve so many things by like progressive exposure and by reiteration and dedication and kind of gritting your teeth and trying to push through. And I just like to make the distinction here, saying that this is different than just gritting your teeth and pushing through. This is something that I cannot do, and I don't know why. It's like a phobia, you know? You don't know why you're afraid, it's irrational. You logically understand it makes no sense. You logically rationalize and make reasonings as to why it's there, but it doesn't help, and it doesn't change that it's still there, you know? I know that when I turn that light off, there's nothing in the dark waiting for me, but that doesn't mean that there's not people terrified of switching off that light source. You lose that lambency and you're up for grabs, you know? Your brain is there to sabotage you. And it's really, really unfortunate, especially if it affects your life. And I think it affects everybody's life in similar ways, in small ways, and sometimes in big ways. But my girlfriend was talking about somebody the other day, which I thought was really fascinating. And she was talking about a girl who has a fear of being sick, a fear of vomiting, a fear of... And the word for it is a word I've now forgotten, but it's similar to emesis. Because the word emesis, if you don't know, guys, is to vomit. And it's like a emetophobia or something like that. and it means a fear of vomiting. And I do apologise if you're eating, because there's always that one guy eating. Sorry, dude. Skip this part, we're talking about vomiting. But she has a fear of it, an irrational fear of it, and it's so severe, it's not just her. So she's mitigated all the risk of her catching like a sickness that would make her vomit. She only eats certain things, she only goes to certain places, she doesn't like to be anywhere where she might get sick or around people who are sick, and it extends to other people vomiting. So her phobia is so strong, she cannot fathom being on an aeroplane where she's trapped inside something for 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, and someone on that plane might be sick. The idea of someone else being sick stops her from doing whatever it is that involves other people. Like, can you imagine that? Imagine being so afraid of something that you are even afraid when it's like third party. And that's the thing, isn't it, with irrationality and irrational fears? You don't choose it. And people get really douchey when you talk about this, because people are fucking stupid, let's be fair. Like, they'll be like, oh, how can you be scared of spiders? It's just a spider. It's way more scared of you than you are of it. It's like, dude, this is the same person that runs away from a fucking bee. Like, come on now. The whole point of an irrational fear is that you don't know why you're afraid of it, but your body is. You know, it's like you've inherited the reptilian brain that remembers what this bee did to him, 2,000 years ago or some shit. There's a Neanderthal somewhere that got stung by a bee and died. And his children remembered and took vengeance on the bees. They were bee killers. There were special forces of anti-bee, anti-technology to get rid of those honey bastards. But it's one of those things. Oh, by the way, this is the hardest enemy in the game. That monster I was just fighting there, he's an upgraded version of that big lanky sod that just whacks you a bit. We've got a couple of new enemies here, and I've not even talked about them once. I'll do that on the next level. But suffice to say, use your specials on him, shut him down, and don't let him do any of his bullshit. Jump over his AoEs, don't get hit by him, and don't let him shoot you, because he hits like a fucking truck. And you're going to see him quite a lot. I saved the shotgun for him, and I stick it up his bumhole. But something to bear in mind, guys, you cannot dash and use your special on the shotgun at the same time. I have a ton of issues in this recording trying to use my special on the shotgun while dashing at the same time, and it never comes out. And it leads to me missing my super because I thought the game was bugging out, but it's not. It wants you to sit down and shoot it. So bear that in mind. But here comes the boss. We're also using a new weapon that you've noticed. It is a blade throwing like melee weapon, and it's infinite too. So it does not reload, but it fires quite slowly. It's also one of the best weapons in the game for getting slaughters because it's really good at stunning enemies. And then we have another boss, which this is one of the bosses that I actually think is a bit more interesting. But look at the damage I do with a shotgun on this guy compared to the damage I did on the first guy. This is the problem with the bosses. They're too beefy, I don't know why I said it like that. They're just too tanky, and it makes them uninteresting. And they always fade away, and then summon adds, and then they fade back down, and all the fades, if you add them up, are longer than the boss fight should have been. Like, you should be able to come in here, hit this dude with each of your specials, and fucking kill him. Like, I want a boss that can hurt me, but I want to hurt him, I want a Ninja Gaiden boss. I want you to die in 5 hits, I want to die in 2. Is it really so hard to ask for that? And I suppose the counter-argument could be, but then, Chris, how would they hear the song? Buy it on fucking iTunes! I don't know. Get it on Bandcamp. If you want to listen to the song, listen to the fucking song. Don't make me suffer the boss just because you want to get to the hook. But here's another one of those bullet hell patterns where you just kind of walk around and it might not hit you, and maybe it will. But these blades look really awesome, but the timing on them's kind of awkward. And it's not the rhythm of the timing, because the rhythm is the same as it's always been. It's the visual of it, the visual like recoil of the weapon. I find it super confusing until I've used it for like a couple seconds, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get this. Oh, and another thing I've not mentioned, guys, is not only can you dash on the beat, but you can also reload on the beat. And if you do that, you get a better reload. So you should always do that, because it makes it quicker. But the special move for this weapon involves this massive tornado of kind of like gold blades. And it's very good. But look how boring this is, dude. I'm doing chip damage to this fucking boss, and I'm hitting him a million times. It's just... it makes me sad. I'm going to do my best as well, fellas, not to just bitch at the bosses when they're on, because there's so much resentment in me. It's really bad. And it stems from... I don't understand how the game testers and the play testers and the devs themselves could do this and think, yeah, we made a winner here. Like, when Doom Eternal has bad bosses, which if you didn't know that, it does. I can give you the Gladiator. I think the Gladiator's kind of okay, but all the rest of the bosses in that game are dog shit. They're not interesting at all. They're lame. Especially the fucking Dark Knight, or whatever he's bloody called. The evil version of you who's absolutely terrible and couldn't be more boring if it tried. And you know what's really sad about Doom Eternal having shitty bosses? Is that the Marauder fight, when they introduce him, is a better boss fight than any of the boss fights in that game. And his particular playstyle suits that game. Like, I think the Marauder should have been the boss. Because he is exactly what a boss in Doom Eternal should be. He is a force multiplier that makes everything else terrifying because he's running around like a methed up junkie with a brick trying to club your dome in. Guy's amazing. Speaking of amazing, this is one of my favourite songs in the game. This is by far the heaviest song on offer, with the best vocals when it comes to aggressive vocals, if you're a fan. My tier list on the game is this guy, Speed from Soilwork, and Mikkel Stan. And then shortly followed by probably Surge, because I think Surge's song in this is pretty good, in as much as I'm not a big fan of System of a Down anymore. You know, I liked the self-titled album, I liked Toxicity, but everything after that I kind of fell off. But this level here, I like this level a lot, because it's kind of Egyptian themed, and anything that makes me think of like pharaohs and shit is a good thing. It's one of the reasons why I love Nihil, and I would love to play this game to Nihil, can you imagine? Playing like Execration Text or Sarcophagus or something. Those whom the gods detest, or a little bit of Cast Down the Heretic. Can you imagine the beat on Cast Down the Heretic? Or Burning Pits of the Duath? What is that, like 286 BPM? I'd play that. Do you know what I'd like to do on this game as well? I'd like to hook up my Guitar Hero Rock Band kit, or my drum kit, whatever you want to call it. And I'd like to use the kick drum for the beat. And play the game on mouse and keyboard, but every time I shoot, it's the kick drum that I'm tapping my foot with. And I'd just hit the kick drum with my foot repeatedly. And I'd run around decimating the whole thing. That'd be so fun. Oh, here he is, by the way, the big dude. So let's talk about some of the enemies. So this is the most dangerous enemy in the game, pretty much. And if you focus him, he goes down quite quick, but do not underestimate him. I died once in this walkthrough, and it was in the last level. And it's because I bum rushed him to try and beat him up with a shotgun, and he just ate it and fucked me up. Don't be me, don't do that. But now we've got the standard jobbers. Some of the other enemies that you're going to see the angels turning up. There is a flying angel that looks a lot like the guy that throws the spear at you in the Doom Eternal DLC. And he's here right now, see him up there? He's going to fire a big laser at you, and he's going to do these big AoEs, and I'm just going to hit him with a shotgun and slap his dick off. And then the other one is this guy right here, who is another enemy, and he's kind of like a puppet master who summons these marionettes. You can see the strings a little bit. And if you shove the shotgun down his mouth and give him a little bit of the old cranial ventilation, he doesn't have much to say. And then you can get on with your life. And that's pretty much all the enemies, guys. You'll have a blue version of the green guy who's just coming right now, this guy here. So this is the green guy. He has like poison claws or something. And then there's a blue version of him who has electricity. I know, right? Super, super creative. And that is pretty much the ensemble. And I'm curious if they're going to add some enemies, because I think it's a bit basic bitch, personally. I don't know about you guys. Like, I think it's perfectly apropos for what it is. It's a rhythm game, and if it's a rhythm game, I don't mind. But when it comes to being a shooter, I feel like they needed something slow. Something slow, something big, something bulky. But it did something to force you to move, and if you were close to it, it hit you. Like, this game needed, in my mind, a mancubus. It needed a big, dangerous target that lumbers around that's not that much of a problem if you control it, but if you don't know it's there, it's a really big issue. I also think they could have done more with environmental hazards, an enemy that causes environmental hazards. They have the shield guy that puts the thing on the ground. They have that big fierce monster that does the same thing. But other than that, I think it really could have amped it up a bit. I don't think it should have done it too much, because I'm playing a game called Shatterline. And sometimes when you get to the bosses on that, you've got 50 different AoEs happening in your feet at every moment, and it just feels like you're being damaged by the very game itself. It feels like reality is hurting you. You know, if the particles of matter in the air that surround us all and make up everything could stab you really quickly, Shatterline would let them do that. And I love that game, guys, and if you're not playing it, it's available right now. It's free on PC, it's in early access. It's kind of like Destiny with PvP, with Black Ops 4 influences. It's got some of the best mouse I've ever felt. Way better than the mouse in this game. But it does have issues with damage sources happening all the time and not being certain where they're coming from or why you're being hurt. Hell, today on stream, I got shot through a fucking piece of geometry. I was taking cover behind this big capsule, massive thing, and a fella just put me down. Literally put me down like old Yeller. Didn't even use both barrels. Didn't even take me behind the shed. Just murked me in front of the kids, dude. Scarred for life. But this is a really interesting room, this, because there's tons of opportunities to fall off. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm really good at falling off. Like, I like to be mobile in shooters, and that mobility comes at a cost. And that cost is if there's a hole anywhere, I'm going to find it. But this is a fun fight, this one. There's lots to kill. We've got lots of tools. I'm hoping that they let us use all the weapons. I hope they change that restriction, because if their argument is they want the game to be balanced, I think they've already fucked that up, because the bosses are dog shit, and they're not even remotely balanced. Like, the final boss, towards the end, used to crawl towards you and dump a lightning in front of you, and there was nowhere to go. And you could die immediately and have to do the whole level again. Like, how is that fucking balanced? Like, it's so weird. And have I mentioned that the final boss summons every other boss you've killed thus far as an ad? Talk about creatively redundant. Talk about tripping my final nerve as well. Playing my bloody nerves like a sitar. They got like a straight razor for a bowstring. Oh, I'm falling off. I could have probably saved myself then, but because I'm confused about how to dash on this control scheme, it didn't happen. But what do you think, folks? Do you think that they're going to release more songs? Do you think they're going to pay for more artists to do things? Or do you think they're just going to kind of give us that mod support, let us add our own songs, and leave it at that? Because I wonder how they'll do that. If you have to pay for that, I'll be pissed. If the bands have to pay to be on that, I'll be pissed. Because to me, music is about sharing. You know, I want bands to make money in the same way I want to make money being what I am, you know? Think about it. Streaming and YouTubers, they're essentially they're the new age buskers. The difference being is you don't need to know how to play a fucking instrument and you can be a total piece of shit. That's the only difference. There's no threats of violence physically. There's no like altercations in man-to-man because of course you're not out in the public with people telling you to shut the fuck up. But instead you just get all the passive-aggressive bullshit and the occasional risk of being swatted and shot to death. So for me, like, I want people who do creative things, who put themselves out there in what people appreciate. I want them to make money. I think that's amazing. I think this opportunity is wonderful, and it's the only time in history where it's been available, really. But at the same time, there's all those people that are using it for the wrong reasons and exploiting, and, you know, that most recent thing on Twitch talking about fucking child predation and whatnot. Like, what a horrible thing. And I'm not shocked, and I'm not surprised, dude. It doesn't matter what it is, does it? Like, let's face it. All you need to do is watch that episode of Brass Eye on paedophiles, and that's satire, ladies and gentlemen, but the reason why they banned that episode is because that's how fucking dark reality is. You know, right now, there is somebody trying to manipulate and get close to a young kid for purposes of sexual gratification. That is happening. You can't deny that. That's reality. You know? You can't kill them all, you can't execute them all, you can't castrate them all, you have to try and learn and understand them. You know, we need to figure out what that is in the brain, where the aberration is, and we need to try and find a way to help them, you know? You don't choose who you're attracted to, it's fucked up, but at the same time, I hope you have enough self-control and at least moral decency to not destroy a young person's life. Like, come on now, how hard is this? It's supposed to be fucking video games, why are you grooming kids? But ever since I played Roblox, I became very aware of that shit, dude. Like, Roblox, if you've never played it, is this platform that is 100% the equivalent of like the playground for kids. It's like going to the park. Do you remember when you were younger and you went to the park and there were the older kids there and they brought cider and you could drink your first cider and get pissed off your face and not know what was happening? You know, you kissed a girl, or, you know, you got into a fight, or you ended up breaking something and being chased by the police. Like, the park was the proving ground for social interaction. It was a crucible of development as being a little mischievous little sod. Now that's been done digitally, and the people you're doing it with are using like fake voices and they're 45-year-old men fucking jacking off. Like, it's dark. It's so dark. And then when it's not that, it's people fucking cheating. Isn't it crazy? Back when I started YouTube, I don't think anyone was cheating. They would have if they'd have known, because let's face it, everybody wants to get ahead in life and they'll do anything. Like, if they had to use your child as a sacrifice so that they could get some kind of prestige from the gods, they'd do it. Absolutely do it, dude. You'd have been gone longer than Madeline. You still haven't found her. Still looking too. Not very far though, are they? Not very far. I think you might have found it. I think the parents did it. Arseholes. How does a doctor lose a fucking kid? Come on now. But this is Metal Hellsinger, not to be confused with To Catch a Predator. And I think we're coming on the boss fight now. This boss here has a move that I really disagree with, but other than that, I think that this is a slightly better boss in a game full of shit bosses. This guy's going to move around this area and he's going to change the formation of the blocks on the ground. And if you use the crossbow here and you're on beat, you can really hurt this guy. And I like that the battlefield is a little bit dynamic. The problem stems from when he starts using the wind that changes your mobility. And just a show of hands in the comments, guys, to see how many people are still listening. And if you comment on multiple instances of me asking questions like this, you're an absolute god. I don't get many comments, and when I do, they're usually some fucking spam bots trying to sell me sex in a different language. So thank you, if you do. But how many people think anything that affects your movement in any game is even ever any good? And I know there's like several hundred negatives in that sentence, because as soon as it came out of my mouth I regretted it, but I still liked it. Like, can you think of a single instance in a game where you wanted your movement to be impeded and you wanted to feel like you weren't in control of your character? Because I can understand frustrating the player. I can understand giving the player a problem to solve and giving them some kind of difficulties to circumnavigate. What I can't understand is when I hold to go to the left and my guy's going to the fucking right. When you're in control of a game and it's precise and it's intense and it's lots of inputs very quickly, there is no greater sense of connection if you're on a good setup. If you've got good frames, good controls, everything's responsive, you are in that game, it is an extension of your body. The moment that stops, you're pulled out of it and it's irritating. So when developers use this as a feature to augment difficulty and or troublemaking to make the player have to do something, I find it bothersome. Because I don't think anyone ever goes, oh yeah, I love that part where my game wouldn't fucking control correctly and I took damage that felt unearned. I don't know anybody that thinks that. And I don't mind hazards, I don't mind environmental hazards, it's just I don't want you to move my character against my will. Ever. And it happens in every game. It happens with magnetic stuff where they pull you in on a vacuum and it pulls you and you fight against it. Like, think of a game, it has an instance of that, doesn't it? A moment where you're like on ice and you're slipping when you stop and it feels like you've got all this weird inertia. Like, I don't want that. I don't want realistic physics in my fucking video game. I want to shoot monsters, I want them to die, I want to revive when I die, I want to hold W and shift to sprint, you know? Like, I want it to be a video game. I don't want it to be what I'll be like when I'm 85 years old and I can't even remember how to fucking walk. And this is a really criminal fight for it. It's one of the only instances of the game where it does it too, which I think makes it worse. But I do look forward to the discourse. I look forward to somebody saying, I like it and here's why, you know? I think it does this, I think it adds this, and who knows, maybe I'll change my mind. Spoiler alert, I won't even read your comment. Do-do-do! Which is an absolute lie, I'll read your comment. I'll just remove it and then pretend I was right. Which people do that. I get accused of removing comments sometimes. When I check like the list of comments and shit, every so often there'll be just one guy like, oh, you removed my comment because I was right. It's like, dude, I don't even know who the fuck you are. I've never even heard of you. Which poses a good question, doesn't it? What is that? Does YouTube do that? Is that one of those like, where they remove things because of their filter settings or something? Because back in the day, I used to remove comments all the time. If you said something I thought was stupid, I'd remove it. Nowadays, I only do it for racism because it can get you in trouble. Which is bullshit to me. How the fuck can I stop people being racist? I'm sorry, but did you not watch Blazing Saddles? Turns out, people are racist. And Blazing Saddles is not racist, guys. It's a really, really funny piece of satire, I think. But you get what I mean. Like, they'd probably ban that movie now. Even though it's made by a person who is a minority and who has also been persecuted. That's what makes it funny, you know? It's the whole Borat thing, isn't it? You do realise that Borat is not a white American. That's why he can do that, you see. It's his culture that he's taking the piss out of in many things. Which I suppose, is it his culture? He's Jewish, isn't he? I suppose people from Kazakhstan, are they Jewish? I don't know. I'm ignorant of this stuff, guys. I'm just a commentator on a video game video, and I'm doing a poor job. But this is Nihil. I like this level a lot. And this is Speed. This is easily one of the best songs in the game. It also has a boss that's a good idea, but again, the balance makes it tedious. But as you might have noticed, guys, or maybe you didn't, if you're not on beat and your multiplier isn't high, you will never hear the song. You will just hear a muted version of it. And personally, I don't like that. I don't like how they mute the song to punish you. I think that that's a bad idea, because it makes it harder to keep the rhythm. I think the song should be there, and I think when you get your multiplier up, they should add all the plugins. So I think the song should start as the demo. It should start as roughs, no EQ, no compression, you know, like no delays, no reverb or anything. They should have like the automation to a minimum. And then as you get that multiplayer up further and further, the production value gets higher and higher and higher, and it starts panning out and it starts becoming a real sound space, like a soundscape. And I think that that would be a much better way of doing it, because then at least you could hear the song. It might be like MP3, but you can fucking hear it. And then if you play well, you get lossless. You get lossless, you get like fucking Cher. She sticks the tube in her mouth, it sounds great, right? Because when you're dying in this game, and you're about to bite the bucket, it's really, really hard. Did you like what I did there, by the way? I forgot what that's called. Sigma, remind me of what that's called. There's a word where you take two axioms and you smash them together. I really like doing that as well, it's funny. But I was talking today on stream about misspeaking, and it happens all the time. I misspeak commentaries all the time. You probably hear it and let me off. You might be that one dude that doesn't, because there's always that one guy. I'll have you know, you actually said the word colourful instead of coloration. Thanks for that. Makes me feel great about my life. But I said, what did I say? I said Van de Graaff generator instead of Van diagram. Or Venn diagram, sorry. And you know what I mean, and you can understand what I've done if you know what any of those words mean. If you don't know what those words are, it's a quick Google search, you'll be fine. Ooh, I need to talk about that because that's important. So just then, you might be thinking, Chris, why didn't you slaughter him? I couldn't do it. If there is anything blocking your line of sight to a stunned enemy, you cannot slaughter them. It's terrible, I think. Because not only can the enemies block their paths, but so can pots, and so can walls, and so can, like, pixels. Pixels of collision can stop you from being able to slaughter people. And I've got some ideas for a balancing mod for this game that I'd love to do. And the idea is, when you're on the beat, you do lots and lots of damage. When you're not on the beat, you don't do any, really. And then what I would do is I would make it so that every enemy has a weak point, which multiplies what you do. So, if you're not on the beat, but you hit a headshot, you still do decent damage. However, if you are on the beat and you hit a headshot or a weak point, you will always put the enemy to slaughter. And depending on the weapon will depend on how quick that happens. So, if you use the shotgun at range, it might take 2 perfect shots. If you're up close, 1 shot. Always slaughter, no matter who they are, right? As long as you're on the beat and you're in the right place. And then I would make it so that maybe the skull is 2 to 3 shots. The sword would be 1 to 2 shots. And all the other weapons would be a variation of maybe 1, 2, 3. And I would always make it so that the enemies go to slaughter. And then when you hit 1 slaughter, if anyone's near the enemy when you do a slaughter attack, it puts them into a stunned state and you can chain the slaughter. And I would just kite a bunch of enemies near me. I would hit the first guy with a nice perfect hit, put him in slaughter, and then I would just steal on bone the shit out of everyone. And that's what I'd like to do. And then I'd remove the bosses wouldn't be in the game. It would just be the levels, and it would be a super dangerous mode, because I would make it so that when you get hit, you get chunked. But I would also make it so that the song doesn't change, you just get the screen. And think about it, right? If you die in 2 hits, it's not a big deal, because if you're doing slaughters, which you're going to be doing all the time, you get your life back. So as long as you play correctly and you get a slaughter, you'll stay alive. And it'll be this constant balance of, you're 1 moment away from death, but you're always 1 moment away from life. And I think it would just be fucking awesome. Because I don't like it when I shoot an enemy like 12 times with perfect rhythm and I don't even get them into slaughter. Like the skull is the worst pistol I've ever used. Like, I'd rather beat Doom 2016 with its pistol than use this thing, because it doesn't do any damage. And it makes no sense. It's a fucking skull, dude. It's like an angel skull or something, isn't it? I didn't quite understand the story because I didn't give a shit, but it's a special skull. That's what it bloody is. It's a special one. Isn't it like Lucifer? I can't remember. It's something. The Lorehounds will tell me. I think I get lost here as well, because I couldn't quite remember where you go. And it's around the right hand side, isn't it? I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Where am I going? And then it's a little pathway up the side of the mountain over here. There we go. That might be the only part of the game where I couldn't figure out where to go, that. But like, see just then, that to me is like the perfect amount of damage. I was close to him, I hit him with a shotgun on rhythm and it put him to slaughter. But there's times when it doesn't work like that. And the damage seems really spotty. And you know what else what I would do, guys? I would make it so that you can do slaughters without being on the beat. Because sometimes it can be really awkward. You feel like you're on it and it doesn't work and then it just punishes you. But what I would do is I would make it so that it doesn't heal you. So if you fuck the rhythm up, you get the slaughter, you kill the enemy, but you don't get anything for it. Like, I might even reduce the points or something. And I'm talking about this mod like I'm going to know how to do any of this, and I don't. But if you're listening, and you do, let's make it together, bro. You can have all the credits, I don't even need a credit. I'll just be the guy that gives you the ideas, and you can program them. Because this skull can be really good sometimes, and then other times it can be really weak. And also, when you dash, if you dash into people, it does hurt them. You can stun people doing it. But when you need it to, it never does it. And when you don't need it to, it does it every time. And here we go, we got another angel. And another thing too is, I think I'd make it so that the hit streak didn't go if you were hit. Because I think that's a bridge too far, that's way too, like, fucking Devil May Cry for my tastes. Like, I'd probably make it decay a little bit faster, but I wouldn't have it so that when you get hit it gets interrupted, because I want people to be aggressive. I don't want somebody to try and get super aggressive and then get punished by losing all their combo gone because they overextended. Like, I want you to overextend. I want you to get in people's face. I want it to be fast. I want it to be violent, you know? I want to delete this enemy because it's fucking garbage. Wow, that was cool. So my one lamentation when it comes to the video you didn't see, guys, because I recorded this level and I got cocked again by the recording because I stopped it by accident. There was a sequence coming up where there's 2 of those big dudes, you know, the tall guys who slam the ground and jump at you. There was 2 of those dudes that spawn in a small room, and I stood next to them as they spawned and I fired the shotgun secondary feature and it killed them both. It was a really, really nice spawn kill. And then here we go, we've got a 20-minute boss fight now against a gank of satanical Christmas decorations. Like, I'm trying to think about what these dudes remind me of. Like, it's like, can you imagine if the Majora's Mask got into Depeche Mode? It's like Majora's Mask when he discovered 9 Inch Nails, isn't it? And then he played Nier and got obsessed with those, like, trashy projectiles. Like, the projectiles right now, they look like the ones from that Lucky game. You know, where you play as that fox. Dude, that game was awesome. I did a no damage run to the bosses on that game, and it's the best video I've ever made, and I know you didn't watch it, because no one did. You should watch that video, it was godlike. But look at the downtime. Count the downtime in this fight. And the idea here, for people who've not done it, and if you're struggling, is they separate, and then one of them has like a funny hat on, and you can't hurt him, and the other one is vulnerable, and you can hurt him. So it's just... shit is what it is. It's fucking terrible. Like, I could design a better boss with a Christmas cracker. I could design a better boss using the characters inside the joke, inside the Christmas cracker. And of course, everybody that doesn't know what Christmas crackers are has no idea what I'm talking about. And I don't really know how you translate those, because the more you explain what that is, the stupider it sounds, and the more you understand that the English people are stupid. But the idea is, I don't even fucking know. How do I start to say this, guys? Someone in the comments who's English, explain a Christmas cracker. And do it with Wikipedia, and mention, like, Henry VIII, because if you do it in any other way, you sound stupid. It is a cardboard celebratory destructible object with some kind of gift inside. Oh, I don't even know what I would call it. It's like a piñata, but it's not cool, and you wouldn't want it at a birthday party. And it's not colourful, and it's not full, and it's not fun, and it doesn't have candy, and you don't beat it up. It's nothing like a piñata, really. It's just terrible. But it's my culture, goddammit, so don't you disrespect it. Oh. I walked to the shop today, guys, to pick up some food. And I've not been out of the house in about 7 years, and it fucking rained. Can you imagine? Do you ever get that feeling sometimes that God's watching and he's an asshole? Because I don't, because he doesn't exist, but if he did, I know he'd be a bell end. But what are the chances, dude? It was so warm when I went out. It was so mild, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. It looked like a standard evening, everything was fine, everything was golden, everything was halcyon. It was practically a Christmas card. It was inside of a snow globe, it was so, you know, scenic. And then I came out of the shop, and that was it. Just absolutely drenched. Autumn shower, apparently. But look at the downtime in this fight, see how stupid it is? And look how much life they've got. I'm not even halfway through, point blanking with the most powerful gun I've got. There's probably a super better way of doing this, but I didn't find it. That's the best way of doing it, hit it with that special. And there's an interesting thing in this game, which I've not talked about. So one of the abilities is a Tearstone Ring. So when you're low on HP, you get a 50% damage increase, which sounds amazing, doesn't it? The problem with it is, when you're at low HP, you can't hear the fucking song. When you're at low HP, you're an extra in the movie Hurt Locker, and a bomb's just gone off and all you can hear is tinnitus. And I'd love to know what type of person wants to play this game listening to a song as if you've just got back from a year of gigging. Like, who wants to listen to a song through Tom Araya's ears? Because I don't. So what's the point in a mechanic that rewards you for having low life when the entire game is designed around not having low life? Like, can somebody give me a compelling answer as to why that works? Because I just can't understand it myself. Although I do recommend putting it on the last 2 levels, because if you get close to dying like I do, you can use it to get extra damage and hopefully win. Although I do think they might have tweaked the final boss, because the final boss at launch was a pain in the ass. And on this recording, he was a pussy, and I don't really know why. But here we go. Ancheron. Randy Blythe of Lamb of God. This level here is actually pretty good, but the boss is by far my least favourite. The boss takes so long you'll get bored 5 times over and wish you were playing a different game. But the song's pretty cool. And I used to be such a fan of Lamb of God, but now I am not. And it's ooh, that was weird. And it's a weird situation to be in, because I see a lot of people saying things about Randy Blythe, and I just don't get it. Like, talking about him as, like, one of the greatest vocalists ever. And don't get me wrong, you know, I like me some Randy. Randy's done good things, especially Palace's. Palace's Randy, big fan. But, you know, when you start talking about greatest singers in metal, this guy doesn't come up. It's like when people say things like Corey Taylor, and I just think, have you only ever listened to Slipknot? Is that the extent of the vocalist you've heard? Like, have you ever heard of a guy called Mike Patton? Ever heard of that guy? Ever heard of that guy's range? Like, no? Nothing? Have you ever heard Rob Halford? Guy's been doing it for 200 years. The dude's a tree. Still doing it. Like, and you want to say fucking Randy Blythe? Like, have you heard of Travis Ryan? Anybody heard of Travis Ryan, guys? I hope you have, but I know you haven't. Like, to me, it just seems weird. It's such a weird thing. But I suppose music is so subjective, isn't it? We all think that what we like is the best, and it's just transformative. But you will change your opinions as you get older, I think. I think everybody does, don't they? I know I'm changing mine steadily. I'd just like to point out there that I was still young when I dropped off the Lamb of God train. And I can remember exactly when it was, because the album Sacrament came out and it was garbage. This is interesting, this level, though, because when I played it on stream, I was getting a bit tired of the game. And I was tired because I've been playing it all day, and it is quite strenuous for a game. It's pretty taxing on your brain. It's very high octane, it's very fast, and it's quite physical because of the beat matching. And when I got to this level, I didn't understand the game well enough to realise that there's an enemy spawning enemies, and I think I was killing the enemies that weren't the spawner. So these fights lasted way longer than I thought they would. And then when I came back and recorded it, because I knew what I was doing a bit more, it went down really quick. It was nowhere near as long as I remember. But who do you think is the like a great vocalist, guys, if you had to pick one? Would you pick somebody interesting? Would you pick somebody unique? Would you pick somebody not so great? And why is it Johnny Craig, of course? Johnny Craig, the greatest vocalist. Or the vocalist? Who's that guy from The Faceless, who's always doing heroin and keeps getting sacked? That guy's good, isn't he? He's a good vocalist. Remember when he ruined Planetary Duality by singing on every fucking song with his shitty voice? I do. That was terrible, wasn't it? Dude, these pistols are so good, these flintlocks. If you could get these flintlocks with no reloads, oh my god, they'd be good. And then every time I see a flintlock in a game, I always think of Loaded. There was a character on that who was like a robotic pirate skeleton man, and he had double flintlocks. And I will never not think that that looks cool. In my mind, seeing that character, he's got the best character design of any character in any game. And then you look at that game, and he looks like two pieces of plasticine put together with like a rod you took out of a toaster. Isn't it funny what your mind does? It's crazy. This song's fun though. I think Randy did a great job on it. And that's coming from an ex-Lamb of God fan. But did anybody see the tier list of Lamb of God albums that Mark did? Mark Morton, I think he's called, the Lamb of God guitar player. It's very rare to see a band rate their own albums in something like that and be quite honest about it. Usually they just say stuff like, we don't like our old stuff, we like our new stuff, and everyone goes, we like your old stuff, your new stuff shit. But he graded in a tier list, a numerical tier list, of what he thinks was best to worst. And he put my favourite album as top, which I thought was awesome. Because it feels validating even though it's stupid, because it doesn't mean anything, does it? But I just think they did something on As the Palaces Burn that I just don't think they ever achieved again. And it's really funny too, because if you don't know about that album, it had a notoriously questionable mix. And it was mixed by Devin Townsend, who you might know who he is now because of YouTube, thanks to those React channels all saying like, oh my god, this guy can sing. Of course he can fucking sing. He sang for Stevie Vai for like 45 years. Come on now. This guy used to have hair back when he was singing. Now he's got no hair and he's just as good, if not better. But the production that he did on that album, I think, is really, really, really awesome because it sounds like nothing else. But because of the way it sounds, a lot of the nuance and a lot of the finesse and a lot of the audiophile like testicle tickle has been reduced, and instead it's been replaced with ferocity and aggression. And I think that the angriness of that album is the way they've captured just pure and utter unadulterated brutality on that album is unmatched. And recently they did a remaster of it. Another engineer went in and mixed it and remastered it, and it sounds a lot cleaner. You can hear the instruments a lot better. The whole space has been opened up and everything sits in place. And as an engineer, it sounds fantastic. It sounds clear, it sounds punchy. As a Lamb of God fan who adores that album, it sounds like sterile garbage and I fucking hate it. I will never listen to it ever again. But that CD that I bought when I was playing Star Ocean 3 all those years ago, oof. I will always love Devon's mix on that. And if you ever hear this, Devon, I am that one guy that thinks the job you did there was fucking exceptional. Because it was. And I don't care what anyone wants to say. You can say it's wrong, you can say it's bad. There's no such thing, it's music. How does it make you feel? Makes me feel amazing. Unbelievable mix. and I love that album. And this is a good fight as well. Can you imagine though playing this level, and instead of having this song on, you've got Palaces or Gospel? You know, I can drop some Ashes on there as well. I don't mind Ashes, although I've definitely gone off it as I've got older. Which is ironic as well, because when I was first listening to Lamb of God, Palaces was too heavy for me. I didn't understand it. It was too much. And Ashes wasn't. Ashes was, the production was cleaner, it was less heavy, it definitely had more groove going on there. It felt a bit more melodic to my shitty, untrained ears. But now, when I listen to like Ashes, I find it quite boring. But when I listen to Palaces, I want to go and rip a piece of wood off and start a war against Vikings. You know, I want to jump on a longboat and beat the shit out of a helmsman. And then Sacrament came out and I wanted to die. It sounds like fucking pop music, dude. It sounds like Avenged Sevenfold. Oh, pain. But different strokes for different folks, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to like what you like and don't give a fuck what other people think. But look at all the enemies here too, just getting around there with the shotgun, getting the executions, jumping around, more executions. Look at this. Oh, this game is so fun, dude. Like, this one fight here is super fun. You know, there's enough fun here. I would pay for this one fight and just play this one fight with different music. You could randomize the enemies, I'm gonna have a good time. And another thing you might be wondering when you watch this, you might be thinking, damn, I don't know if I can play this, my aim's not very good. Don't worry about aiming, guys, it's not about aim. You know, this game is definitely not much of an aim game, although it can be a bit more demanding if you move really quickly and you zip around. You don't really have to worry about being on target because you can just use movement to get closer and to make them easier to hit. And you can just use the weapons that have got bigger AoEs if you want to. The pistols are the most difficult weapon in the game probably, just because you have to be on it. But if you are, you get really rewarded. And if you watch the Dreamcast guy review, he says once he mastered the pistols, he never used any other gun on the game. And Dreamcast guy's played this game more than I have, and if you watch the video of his review and his gameplay, come back here and tell me what you thought, because I'd love to hear some first impressions, because I played it on my stream and we had a real interesting time with that one. Dreamcast guy, the hyperbolic hero that we all deserve but don't necessarily want to be spat on by. I do love that guy though, it must be said. He's fighting the good fight. His reviews are horrible, but I love it that he has the commitment to the game, you know? Did you know Onimusha doesn't have a parry? I didn't. I actually played it. But moving swiftly onwards here, last few fights to get your meter up before you take the boss on. And there's a big warning here, guys. This boss is very hard. This boss is annoying. It has so much life. It really just does not want to die. You shoot the shit out of it, and you take damage really quickly, and there's not much healing if you do take damage, and you better pray you get a slaughter to get some life back, because if you don't, you're going to really go down to the wire. And so far, I'll let you be the judge of how well you think I've played. At any point, did you feel like I was about to die, guys? Did you think that I was going to lose? Because I'm probably thinking, outside of a couple of hairy moments, you think I've done quite well. Well, on this next fight, oh no. This next fight, after this one, it's all bad all the time. But it's not as bad as Sheol, because Sheol has a terrible song that feels like it's out of sync. And I need to talk about that, so the level after this, guys, is the final level. It has the only song in the game I don't like. I find it incredibly grating. And the first time I played it, I wasn't on beat at all and I couldn't understand it. And then I played it again, and it felt easier. It felt easier when I recorded this, and I don't know what changed. But when I went to the Steam discussion forums, there's a bunch of forums saying that it's out of sync, and saying that when you play the game on a high refresh rate, the sync can be more difficult to hit, and some of the parts of the songs are just plain wrong. And I can definitely get behind that, because I know something's going on, I'm just not educated enough to tell you what. And I play on 240Hz, which is 2 times higher than most people's refresh rates. So maybe it is an issue and maybe they'll fix it. But here's this dude. I used to be quite scared of these guys when I first played because they really hurt. But once you get used to the biggest version of them, that douchebag with the cannon, These guys get way more fun because you can kind of bully them with the shotgun. Another game mode I'd really like is every time you get a kill, the gun swaps. There are these challenges on the game that do that for you, and it's really, really nice. Because it's just a different experience, but it's only in the challenge, and there doesn't seem to be a modifier that lets you do it in the game. There's something about the guns constantly swapping and you constantly mixing up what you're doing that just feels really fresh and really cool. Now I've just got this shield man. I wonder what this guy's life is. This dude needs nerfing. I'm all for making him hard to hit because of the shield, but when you do hit him, he should die. Like, I've shot that guy's hand several times with the shotgun and done like 1,000 damage each time, and he's just fine. It feels really weird to me. But how do you feel about the game, folks? Do you like it? Are you enjoying it? Is it what you wanted? I've seen a lot of people that are disappointed with it. I've seen a lot of people comparing it to BPM and thinking that BPM was better, which is... I don't agree with that, but you might. One thing I will say, though, BPM's bosses were way better. And I didn't like those bosses either. I think that first-person shooters are a genre that have never had the best bosses and perhaps never will. Something needs to change that comes along and says, this is a boss fight and this can be good. I just don't know who's going to do it. You know the only person who could have done it, I think? Shinji Mikami. And what did he do? They made Tokyo Ghostwire. And those bosses were actually pretty good. I quite like the bosses in Tokyo Ghostwire, but that game is too simplistic. And here we go, boss time. So, look at the damage that I'm doing to this guy. 760 damage on him. And look at the damage I'm doing to his bar. Anybody think that this is a bit fucking stupid? Like, this is an MMA, dude. This is Bas Rutten at Pride talking about the wonderful Mauricio Shogunhua. No, sorry. This is literally an MMO raid boss life bar. I feel like I'm fighting fucking Yzmat. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you have what I have, which is this strange preponderance for bosses dying quickly, you are not going to enjoy the latter half of this game, because this thing, the pattern's not even that interesting, but he takes no fucking damage outside of this moment here. And even, look at this damage. I'm doing huge damage, and it's doing nothing to his bar. This boss is broken. Absolutely broken. I hate it. Worst boss in the game. And again, I said I'm going to try not to shit on the bosses, and I'm shitting on the bosses. I am sorry. Look how cool these pistols are, though. Can you imagine if they bring DLC weapons? And some of the DLC weapons have got really unique rhythms, like triplets. Can you imagine a gallop gun? And it could be a revolver, you know, like Clint Eastwood using an awesome... It could be a Colt, couldn't it? Like a Colt Ranger or a Colt Walker or something. And he could be hammering the trigger. So he hammers the top of it and fires it, and he goes bang, 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 and like slaps it like he does in like High Plains Drifter or something. Or Outlaw Josie Wales. Hell, you could even do Pale Rider, you know. He could slam fire it in triplets. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. That'd be sick. But look at this fucking boss, dude. It's making me mad just watching it. I hate this. It feels so demoralizing, and it's so neutering. Like, you feel like a jobber who can't do anything. And admittedly, it must be said, I bet there's a better way to fight this that I've not discovered that someone has and thinks this boss is great because they can smash him in 10 seconds. That's great. But I don't know it, I didn't find it, and I find this horrible. And I don't understand why it exists. Like, why am I not able to just shoot this dude? Just shoot him and make him die. Here we go, next phase. I would use the healing a little bit more intelligently than I did as well. I might have been able to get a slaughter here and get my shit back. Like this. I should have done that and saved the healing, but I was actually a bit nervous on this fight because I was getting really tired of recording the game. And it was just because of those recording issues I had where I had to replay the songs. I got super frustrated. And that's what happens, you know, when you've got a bad checkpoint and you know the boss coming up's terrible. It makes me not want to play. And I know it sounds quite childish and it sounds quite, you know, entitled and whiny, but it's true. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, that's what my videos have always been about. I try to be honest, and some people don't like that and some people find it annoying, but I'm sure there's something out there for you. Perhaps a 5-hour video monologue about Darksiders from White Light. Because if you want to hear somebody speak for 3 hours and say absolutely fucking nothing, I recommend that video, dude. If you need sleeping pills, save your money. Shit's free. Did me in about 7 minutes. When I was first playing this video game, I thought it was good, but then I realized it was a video game that I was first playing and was indeed good. Oh, that was cool. Took you an hour to say that, did it? Wow. Again, don't jump on me, guys. Different strokes for different folks. Somebody likes that cunt. He's got millions of views. Has he ever made you laugh, though? I bet I made you laugh in this fucking video, didn't I? And if you didn't laugh, you're a miserable cunt and nobody likes you. I take that back. You're probably none of those things. I'm just washed up and angry about it. Fortunately, I laugh at my own jokes, so everybody wins. But look at this fight, dude. I get so salty when I see this. Interesting. It seemed like my game was out of sync then, didn't it, for a moment? But it wasn't. I think the game was being fucking weird. But this is just... And listen to the music now, guys. This is what happens when you're at low life. Doesn't it sound fun? I love my favourite vocalist singing through me through a tennis racket. Singing through like a fucking cagoule with a tennis rack on it. So this is really scary, this, because if this big guy hits me, I will die. The ground shockwave won't kill me, but any of his other stuff will. That's the reason I use my special then, because he's that dangerous. And I couldn't get the slaughter. A better idea there, guys, was to put the skull on and use it to try and farm a slaughter to get my life back. Because right now, I have to play without getting hit, and it's kind of awkward to do it in this game. Especially when you desync your controller like I've done. Where dodging's not the most natural unless you're firing, and I try to do them both at the same time, but sometimes I panic and I deviate. Looked like I took damage then. There's my special. But look at this, like... Again, answers on a postcard, guys. Who thinks that this boss fight is too long and needlessly repetitive? Is it just me? Is this a perfect length? Is this the type of thing girls dream about and it does no damage the next day? Because this is just... I'm tilted, I'm not playing very well. It's going on forever, and I think I'm going to lose. So, when I think I'm going to lose, I've always got that bit in the back of my mind where I've already lost. And I hate that, dude. I hate being a defeatist, but sometimes you can't help but feel that way. Like, I thought I was done here. And then I beat him, and I was really happy. Fuck that boss, dude. Fuck that boss so much. Suck my dick. Fucking choking with my balls. And here we go, Silent No More by Dennis, everyone's favourite live singer who did a horrible job at Gamescom. And this is it, guys. The beat on this level, when I first did it, was impossible. You just couldn't do it. And I say you, and I mean me, and I'm hoping it's a we, but it couldn't also be just me. And I'll let you be the judge. Do you think I've done a decent job of keeping on the beat? Now imagine, every single beat here I'm missing. That's what happened when I played this on launch. Every beat missed, and I was getting real salty because I couldn't figure it out. And it seemed at the time like the beat was on a downbeat. It seemed like it was like a second beat, like a stutter after the initial kick. And I just couldn't do it. So instead, I just mugged my way through the level, and then I died on the boss. And the boss is a better song. It's a song by Surge, and the rhythm's fine. But this one, if you have any problems on this particular song, guys, I think something might be wrong with the game. And if it's not, we're all shit. Not as shit as this song, though. But again, the developers have mentioned that they're going to be adding mod support that enables us to do modded music. And I don't know if that means you can take your Spotify stuff or your MP3s or whatever you've got. You might even be able to feed your vinyls into it somehow, just like phase it through the monitor. But whatever you do, you're going to be able to replace the songs. And that to me is so exciting. At the moment, I've been listening to nothing but like deathcore, brutal death metal, slam, and grind. So can you imagine like Agoraphobic Nosebleed, Altered States of America? None of the spoken words, songs about sarin gas in the Tokyo subway, or any of that shit, or any of the pee pee poo poo in the mouth or whatever it is, all that shit removed. And actually the songs, the fucking brutal 10 seconds of drums and shit. Like, I would love that so much. Can you imagine spreading the disease? They did not know about disease until the white man came. Oh, I'd be all over that. Like, I think I'm gonna do some like devourment. I'm gonna do some disfiguring the goddess. I'm gonna do abominable putridity, right? I'm gonna do ingested. I'm probably gonna do cephalotripsy. I might do waking the cadaver. What is it? Authority through aggression, I think it's called. And then I'll probably do pig destroyer. Maybe prowler in the yard. 38 counts of battery, or terrifier. Something like that, you know? Something to really boogie to, and see how that goes. But this is a really fun fight as well. This is one of my favourite fights in the game, because the bridge adds a dynamic that some of the other levels don't have, which is the idea of verticality. And I've put the big boy on now. You'll notice I'm bringing shotgun and I'm bringing crossbow. If it was up to me, guys, I'd bring these on every level I don't like the boss on. Because between the crossbow and the shotgun, there's nothing I can't kill. And that last level, if I'd have brought the crossbow, I think that boss would have gone down much faster. So if you learned anything from me, other than a bunch of bands that you're going to put on into YouTube and listen to and think, what the fuck is wrong with Chris' taste? How dare he dislike Sacrament when he likes this dog shit? Other than that, take from this that the crossbow is the destroyer of worlds and the shotgun is the point blank range destroyer of worlds. And also, this song fucking sucks. And if you like it, I am sorry, guys. If you like this one, that's cool. At least you like this song. I get to play this level and spend most of it thoroughly annoyed. And for the more savvier listener, you're probably thinking, well, is that any different to normal? You do sound quite annoyed. And I'm laughing at you because you're funny. And I get it, I dig it. But believe it or not, you know, sometimes I can be quite the summer smile on a summer's day. I don't always have to be the black cloud. Sometimes I'm the silver lining. But it's not when I'm playing the bosses in this game, because they bring out something inside me. I'm just glad that my performance on this level wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to hit none of the beats and it was going to be a horrible video. Like right now, see this? Where I can't hit the fucking beat. Sometimes it can be really difficult to get back on beat when you lose it too. But here's a question for you, kind listeners. If you've made it this far, you are the MVP of the video. We're coming up on the end of a 2-hour commentary where I rambled like an idiot about the fear of vomiting on a plane. So you made it, congratulations, and thank you for being with me. Makes me feel less insane about talking to myself. What do you think the best rhythm game is? What's the rhythm game that you think is the gold standard? Which is the one that you keep coming back to? Are you an Otsu fan? Do you like Guitar Hero? Are you a Dance Dance Mania person? Or Dance Dance Revolution? You know, which one is it? Do you like this? Do you like BPM? Are you a Guitaru man? Or a Parappa the Rapper kind of gal? Damn, I fucked up my slaughter then. That's rare. Because I'm going to be playing a game called Trombone Champ on stream soon. I've applied for a key for it and hopefully I'll get it. And it's a game where you play seemingly classical music on a trombone. And it looks really funny because the trombone makes everything sound silly. And I'm really excited to play it, even though it might not be a kind of game for me. Because I feel like rhythm games, even if you don't like the music, they can still be really fun. And I played one, I forget the name of it, it was called like something Dash, where you played as like a little girl, and you were listening to J-pop, and you were jumping over stuff and like, I don't even remember. But even that game was super good. And it didn't have any music I wanted to play, but you know, I've watched enough Japanese adult video to understand what their voices sound like and to appreciate a beat going to that, and then of course the beat being scored skillfully on a rhythmic basis. So I had a pretty damn good job, and I had a pretty good damn... Wow, I can't speak. I had a pretty goddamn good time. Jesus. Brain is melting, guys. You should not talk to yourself for 6 hours a day, it's fucked up. I'm gonna have to do like a line of cocaine just to stay alive. As you might have noticed as well if you've been checking up on my Twitter, I have recently recorded a Spider-Man project. And for the people that don't like rhythm games and think that this is kind of shitty because it's just a first-person shooter with bad music, if you want a video that's kind of more so like the stuff I usually do, I have a very, very, very interesting run of Spider-Man coming on Ultimate Difficulty. And we just got the announcement for Miles Morales on PC. So when that drops, I'm going to be doing the same to that game as well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes, because truth be told, I was a little bit frustrated with the original Spider-Man because of how it works. The game is a scripting nightmare filled with sequences that have nothing to do with you playing the fucking game. And nothing winds me up more than that, other than perhaps Abby in Last of Us Part 2 and her horrendous diet for those majestic arms. But Spider-Man is a sublime game when you're playing as Spider-Man, and everything else is so boring and so twisted and so frustrating that you almost don't want to play the game. And it's quite unique for me, this, because I've played Spider-Man a lot. I don't usually play games as much as I've played that one, but I beat Spider-Man, and then I made a walkthrough for it, and I did 100% almost both times. And then the DLC came out and I played that. And then when it came out on PC, I did a run of it on PC just to see what it was like, and then I did an entire recording of the game again under a challenge restriction. So at that point, I have snuck around as MJ doing absolutely nothing that is the equivalent of video game load screen so many times, I just don't know if I could face it again. Like, the amount of times I'm going to walk into that weird fucking food bank and talk to me Nanan or whatever, you know, go and mess around with Dr. Octopus as he cries about his terrible comb over, like, it makes me want to die. Because it's just so fucking boring. All I want to do is beat the shit out of people as fucking Spider-Man in a Spider-Man game, and I am literally picking up used tampons and sending them to the fucking recycling. It's the most frustrating thing. And I'm going to talk about that in the guide, because I've got a really, really big opinion on this one, because I gave Last of Us Part 2 so much shit, and fucking Spider-Man's the same. Only Spider-Man is actually a good game, so it hurts even more. And speaking of hurt, dude, this room is so good. This could be a horde room, this. And I'm hopefully going to decimate it with my wonderful explosive dancing. But people tell me Miles Morales is better. And the things that I'm looking for, guys, I want the guns to work this time. I don't want any instance of the guns not working when I dodge and they shoot me anyway. I don't want any instance of Peter attacking the wrong person. I don't want any instance of Peter grabbing the wrong thing when I'm trying to pick up a bin lid and he grabs a fucking car tyre. Like, I do not want Peter to start attacking a bookcase and not being able to interact with a man who's 2 inches from him. Like, I want this game to be a very polished, very streamlined version of itself. Because some of the shit that I've got on my outtakes that I wish I could share with you is unbelievable. Like, I could probably fill a terabyte hard drive with all the garbage that he did that involved me getting fucked, and it was nothing to do with my decision making, my ability, or my mechanics. And it's really frustrating, that. And you might be thinking, I played Spider-Man, I thought it was good, what do you want about it? Well, when you play a game casually, you don't really bump into the things that make it as bad as I'm describing. You bump into the generic average experience, which is usually very good. Casually, I had a great time with Spider-Man. But you know, when I beat the game without using any of the items in the game, without ever upgrading, without taking damage on the hardest difficulty, it changes things. And it changes things to the point where you see every gap, every hole, and every problem. Because when you demand the game to do something incredibly demanding and it lets you down, it burns, and you remember. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen, the final boss. And a really good song, too. One of my favourites, as I can't get the rhythm right now, which is not good. There we go. Stop, settle, do it again. So look at the life bar on the boss. See the difference here between that boss we just did and this boss? See this? This is the boss bar that the bosses should have. You are on the beat using an explosive, you do a big chunk. See that? That's how a boss should work. It's still a bit too small for my tastes. And someone in my stream said, Chris, maybe they do it so you can hear the song. Fuck the song, dude. Fuck the song. If I like the song, I'll buy it. But there you go. First phase down. Now you need to go up here. And be very careful here because he puts these AoEs on the ground and they ripple out in circles. And there's constant waves of them and they're staggered waves. So if you stay on the ground, you get just repeatedly hit. And right now, his hands are going to start glowing, and so is, I think, a part of his shoulder. But you can't hit it just yet. He needs to do his weird attack first. So now is when you can hurt him. Boom, there's his big hit. And you can shoot his sword too if you want to. But I like this fight. I just want to add this. I like this fight mechanically. I like the idea of different weak points and moving between zones to fight him. I think it's clever. My issue comes from this. When the moves are so fucking bullshit to dodge and when you're in first person you can't even see what you're supposed to do. And admittedly, I've only fought this boss twice and I haven't figured out where all the safe spots are, and they will exist, but as a casual experience with this fight, it feels kind of fucking obnoxious. And just then, use the healing up top because you might need the healing down here. And now we have the phase transition and the boss is coming back. So, remember those bosses that weren't good once that you fought 8 fucking times or however many it was? Well, now they're here. And now you get to shoot them. And they're just as uninteresting now as they've always been. The only difference here is they actually die in a decent fashion. So, keep on shooting them. Don't do 150 damage, that's terrible. Dodge their bullets. It's brain dead as fuck, this. It's so lame. And there's no middle ground in this game, have you noticed? The patterns are either the most easy thing, you couldn't get hit by them if you wanted to, or they're so awkward and like all-encompassing that there doesn't seem to be anywhere that's even remotely safe. But here, this phase, his eyes are weak and he's gonna come forward and like start firing stuff with his mouth. So just keep on shooting him in the eyes and strafing left and right. Play it like you're playing Space Harrier. And then as it moves forward, he's going to come onto the platform and he's going to start going all crazy and shit and getting really close and then bombarding you, and you have to shoot his eyes again. And this part here seems to be super random because sometimes when he does the next thing after this mob encounter, sometimes he'll just completely blitzkrieg bop the entire stage. He will drop the Ramones on top of you. It'll be nothing but like black hair, sunglasses and denim. And you're not going to have a good time because it all hurts, and you might even die because I did. But every so often he opens with a different thing and just starts like sitting there waiting for you to shoot him. And if you get that, you should be able to kill him. And of course if you kill him, you've beat the game. But you've just got every soldier you've killed thus far coming back to fight you like we're in the river sequence with the Sorrow. But focus on the Thunder guy. Captain Electro over here, he needs to die. And I wish I could say that the game was better, because it is, you know, it's a good game. It's a good game with a simple concept and it does it well. But everywhere it tries to do something slightly more, it falls apart. Like, they nailed the basic encounters for me because they're fun, they're relatively diverse enough so that you don't get too bored. And then sometimes you start hitting bosses and it feels like the bosses were designed by the people that made the bosses in Human Revolution. Like, the game just feels like a different game because all of the brevity, all of the pace, all of the fun, it just bleeds away into this tedious circle strafing, like archaic pattern dodging pile of dog shit. And boom, be careful of that. Luckily that didn't do too much damage. So he's coming forward now, and it's his face, right in his eye socket, see it? That's what you want to shoot. And if you stand underneath it here, you can do some serious point blanking, but I was paranoid of doing that because last time I did this, I died. So I should be using the explosives. The shotgun's not really doing the damage I want it to be doing right now, but I want the special. There you go, I want that. Put the crossbow on, Chris. Come on, dude. What are you doing? We got him, though. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the end of Metal Hellsinger. The bosses are garbage, but the game is great. Thank you for watching, and you take care now.